All right, well, let's go ahead and get our special meeting going. I know we got a presentation, and then we start getting into our budget and our priorities discussions that go along with that. So let's go ahead and take care of number 4, presentation, discussion, and direction concerning water and wastewater study being completed by New Gen Strategies. So, Zach?
Yeah, so just want to introduce Matthew Garrett. You have seen him before, obviously, in a different capacity, helping out with the drainage fee that was being implemented, but they have, council agreed to proceed with New Gen helping us do water and wastewater rate study. So Matthew is here to speak on that, so I'll give it over to him.
Awesome.
Just the big one to go forward.
Appreciate it. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to be back with you. I wore a special boot for you. I don't know if you noticed. It's new attire. Sorry for the noise. But again, Matthew Garrett with New Gen Strategy and Solutions. Always a pleasure to help cities like yours and to be back in front of you. So not sure if you've already perused this slide deck, but want to go over a couple key inputs affecting your water and wastewater utility this evening. Of course, that lends itself to an analysis of rates. That's what I'm helping you with. And so I have a rate projection, a few recommendations, and then some thoughts, things that you may consider taking action on in future periods based on some of our input and feedback as we visited with city staff. So the first few slides, I really talk about the big objectives. Obviously, the utility is an enterprise fund. We'd like it to be self-sufficient, and including 2025, plus the next 5 years, a little caveat to that $50 million, the city is anticipating projects nearing $50 million. Now, on the books, it's a little less, but I add inflation because I think it's going to happen. And so after I've inflated the dollars, so if you contrast that number to your own CIP without inflation, it's going to be a little bit less. All that to say you have a lot of big needs coming up. Additionally, we were asked to look at some alternatives. One of those was a meter equivalency. We'll talk about what that means, what that could mean to your ratepayers. And then lastly, I believe Council has taken action on some conservation surcharges. And so we'll touch on that as long as you'd like or as little about not only what it means, but how to actually implement it, how to turn that on and off along with the various Stage 4, Stage 5 conservation requirements. So the planned capital investments, in a nutshell, you have about $22 million of needed wastewater and $28 million over the next 5 to 6 years of need. Primarily on wastewater, you'll see in 27 and 28 that $17 million is pretty much the wastewater treatment plant. In the out years, you do have some force mains and some other lines relative to the wastewater system. For water, you have a water well and an elevated storage tank. You also have a number of water lines to move water around your system. So you may already be well versed in your capital plans, but those are stacked up over the next 5 years. Those are going to create the need, we believe, for an additional debt burden. So we don't think you can fund that. Currently, you have about 1,800 connections. You're expected to grow by about 700. And so we don't think the current 1,800 can pay for all of it, right, all at once. And so we will at least anticipate in this model issuing debt. And so you'll see that top orange bar. There's some existing debt service in a light orange. Sorry, the contrast isn't very good on screen here. But we don't have much in the way of yellow capital outlays, meaning we're pretty much debt financing most of our capital needs. So we have that small light orange, existing debt service, and that top bar that you see in dark orange is the additional debt from these new capital projects. So currently, your rate structures look like this. You have identical volumetric rates for residential, commercial, and small business. They contrast in the minimum charges. You'll see that $8.50 additional charge on the commercial minimum. Otherwise, everything is the same, including your wastewater charges. The calculation, however, for residential sewer is based on the winter average, so that's the small footnote in the bottom right. So the two contrasts are commercial pays a little more on the minimum already, and residents have a winter average. But otherwise, these are the rates across the board in your community. So if we do nothing, right, it's not going to function. As you saw, the numbers growing substantially, right? We cannot fund through current rates the CIP plan. And that's all that this chart illustrates. You'll see revenues and expenses on the far left. The middlemost graph is your debt service coverage. So as that debt service starts to become due and payable in years 2, 3, 4, and so on, the coverage requirement that carries, meaning you've made enough revenue in that year to pay all of your O&M and your debt service and some surplus, right? We target 1.1, and in 2028 you would miss the mark if you do nothing with rates. So too with days cash on hand, that can ebb and flow, but effectively we cannot have our days cash go below the 90-day target according to our policy. So one of the tools that we've employed to help mitigate sort of the shortfall is to change the way we charge minimums. So there is a standard promulgated by AWWA, that's the American Water Works Association. It's in the M1 manual, the prior edition, and the recently released edition. And that effectively says that a larger meter has a higher burden and stress on the total system for the instantaneous water demand. It's a function of the continuous flow, the max duty rating on a meter. You already actually have this in some of your rate setting, but this is one of the items we recommended. This does mirror the multipliers in your current water acquisition fees. And so you'll see that first 5/8 inch meter would be a 1 times factor, so no change effectively. So no additional increment for meter equivalency charges. The 3/4 inch, we also held that at a 1 times. Starting from there, it's a 1.67 times. So you can see the effect on commercial. If we were to employ this on the commercial and the small business, those two columns to the right are the effective changes that you'd see. Again, at 5/8 and 3/4, there's no change. And then it goes, instead of $28.50 on a 3/4 inch for commercial, a 1 inch would be $47.50, a 2 inch would be $152, and so on. And this would be the charge at 100% meter equivalency. So kind of the rip the Band-Aid approach. We've also
can you go back? So question I have on this one, because we had talked about this, and I know maybe a discussion. The first one on the residential, we did say that there was going to be an acceptable size for residential, but if there was something like a resident comes in and says, hey, I want to go ahead and get a 3-inch connecting in there, that there would be an additional cost that goes along with that.
There certainly could be. So we could put in
We had talked about that before.
Okay.
In here, so in a sense of just based on the need, because you are going to put a little additional stress than the normal.
Sure.
Right?
Yes, sir. Don't have that baked in, but that's something we can absolutely do. Right now, we haven't employed it on residential, but it may be akin to your small business class. I think that warrants some review as we go forward. Is a small business based on its meter size? And if it is, then maybe the small business 3/4 and 5/8 wouldn't see a change, and the residential 3/4 and 5/8 wouldn't see a change. But everybody with a 1-inch meter and bigger would pay a premium. Now, it may not be as much as a commercial premium. That's up to you and the city's druthers. But we could put in some function of a meter equivalency charge on the larger residential users.
And we were looking more towards the bottom. The other ones would stay the same with the residential.
Sure.
But with this chart itself, did you get any backup data of how many connections we have based on the sizes?
Yes, sir. We did. Well, we had to employ it. So I'll try to rattle them off, or I can grab them in my notes if you want to actually hear about how many.
It's covered, because I'm just interested to be able to see how we're broken down into the different categories.
Yeah, so
sure.
we looked at it before, and
yeah, I'll go
grab the numbers. But I know we have 1 4-inch in town currently, and that's the hotel. The 3 inches, there's 5. We're assuming, without looking at like the delving deep, that's your school locations and HEB. Your 2 inches where you start getting, there's the share line of people were in that 2-inch meter. So that's about 70 or so businesses that are in that 2-inch category. So that's really where your share of the business community is at. So, and then it kind of goes down from there. So.
Yeah, if we want to hear a rattle down of all the sizes and counts, I can do it. Or maybe that summary was enough.
We can produce that.
Oh, yes.
Zach, if you can actually break it down for the whole council and to see how we're broken up into the different.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
I'll just have a note to follow up. I'll send that through, Zach, and you can broadcast it. Sure. Okay.
And I will say that's just on commercial. Small business, I don't know those ones offhand, but that's, we can get that.
Yeah, so small business has 188 total connections. We know that some of those are larger than small, right? They're larger than the 1 inch. So that's to be fleshed out too, what small business means in this next ordinance, if it's not well defined already. And commercial has 88 accounts, many of which are the larger meters, or over a 1 inch, sorry. We don't have that many small. I think we have 10 commercial 5/8 inch meters today on the smallest side. Okay. So if we were to do this without adjusting the residential, as the mayor suggested, we could look at, if you do this only on commercial and you do it starting in 2026, it yields approximately $140,000 of additional revenue for the utility in 2026. Many of my clients that employ this don't like change all in 1 year. And so if you wanted to phase that in, that's what this slide shows you. If you were to phase this in over 5 years, and so we take what the normative 100% equivalency is and we break it down into 20% per year increases, this is that first step. So 1 inch, instead of paying $28.50, today's rate, would pay $32.30. And that's before other rate increases that we may need. This is just comparing current to the meter equivalency against current, right?
If your initial statement, if your initial statement was that the base charge increase, right, based on your scale here, was due to the fact of how much impact a 4 or 3 or 2 inch line has on the system, correct?
Yes.
So how can you say we increase revenues of 142? That water is going to be used. It's not like we're getting additional monies here. It's just all going to be part of their overall billing. So if a commercial, let's say a 3 inch line, you have here 304 for commercial, right? But if their average,
I think it's a previous. Yep.
Yes, sir.
but if their average bill is $1,000, we don't get no increased revenues off of that.
Well,
Am I looking at this the wrong way?
No, I think what you may not see is that this is the minimum only.
Right.
And so their volumes, assuming they're using for business purposes, aren't going to materially change because their minimum changes.
Right.
So if we're making 1,000 a day and we increase that by whatever 270, then we're going to make 1,270 in the first month that we employ 100% equivalent. So the total bill is going to be $1,270, not $1,000.
Why is that?
Because this is a minimum charge. And today,
Yeah, so the minimum, if I'm using if my bill is $1,000.
oh, it's a base rate. So I'm sorry, it's not I do apologize. This is not a minimum floor to be billed. This is the base fee.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Plus a volumetric. I apologize. If I go back, no, I appreciate you asking because that could be easily confused with the way I speak about it.
Yeah, I was like, how do you realize 142?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's the base. Okay.
Yeah. So again, minimum rates, base rates, we use them synonymously, but I understand now that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, 140 if we were to do it all in one fell swoop. If we phase it in, it's another $28,000 at 20%. And again, this is without changing the residential customer class. So kind of all else equal. And this is in addition to whatever rate increases we might really need for the whole system, right? So to pause, any other questions on meter equivalency? Because this is a major tenet of the rate design. I can tell you it's pretty prevalent. I don't know if you've looked around or seen this elsewhere, but it's very common to charge meter size or meter equivalencies in the base rates for water users. Okay, no other questions? Moving along. So the rate plan as we've proposed, again, I've shown you your total expenses over time. I've shown you the debt and how that's going to impact years 4 and 5 in a substantial way. We would recommend that you increase all charges by 5% starting in 2027 for water. And so this is parallel to any action you take on those minimum charge equivalencies. So that's one track. Let's do that. But we also need to raise our rates for all users 5% starting in 27. So in 26, we don't currently see a change or forecast a need to change residents. Now, the council could say we'd rather do 4.5% for the next 5 years, right? So you could phase it in at a smaller amount and start kind of feeling the pain today, just so you have smaller chunks to take out of this. So certainly that's an option. But what we like to do is minimize the number of changes on a ratepayer. And so for the residents, for the sewer, we've already kind of led off with the sewer need being pretty large with the wastewater treatment plant. We are forecasting a need to increase rates by 10% to all customer types in 2026. And so as sound bites or messaging goes, a 10% increase on your sewer bill and nothing on your water bill may be more palatable. And so we do take that into account. Not a spin factor, but just the reality of having done this for a number of councils. There may be an upside to only changing one of the rates as you start to tackle the wastewater treatment plant. A big caveat here, all this is predicated on my assumptions. Your team, your city administrator, still looking at the total CIP. It's certainly your choice in the future to fund those big projects. But if we funded everything as I've lined it out, this is an approach, not the only, but an approach that I think smooths out the total need. And you'll see on wastewater that does ramp up 2% per year into that last year. The upside of doing that, instead of taking a 15% chunk now, is we might do some things in the future to mitigate the cost. And so, any questions on the plan as presented? Okay. So what that would look like, again, water rates would remain the same. This is the residential rate class. Again, barring the meter equivalency adjustments the mayor mentioned. We could certainly put those in place or bring those in the future. But right now, water customers would see no change. Wastewater would see a 10% increase. That takes that minimum charge up from 20 to 22. That first billed tier from 60 to 66, and so on. The commercial class, slightly different. Again, our proposed plan starts to phase in the 20% meter equivalency, and so you'll see the contrast. If we had not changed the minimum rate on the resident, right, we wouldn't change that minimum rate for the 5/8 and 3/4 here on commercial, but we would start to implement the meter equivalency at 20% or 1/5 of the way, right? And so you'll see this is the proposed rate plan. Again, no adjustment to the water rates. Just to keep things simple, while we pull in 10% increases on the wastewater side. And then lastly, you do have a small business class. I know that, I don't know who's running it now. As we visited with Lynette and certainly with Zach, I think where small fits and how this all lines up is something they're going to dig into. But based on our current count, about 200 of these, they would maintain that $20, but because it is a non-residential use, we have employed the meter equivalency on this class. And so it's another 20% step, same sewer rates. Don't want to speed through it, and I don't want to belabor the points either. All good? All good, Mayor? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that was a question coming or not. So ultimately, we have built these rates around a financial plan that works with your key performance indicators. We will have some revenues that are higher than the upcoming expenses as we start to build our balances. As you'll see, our debt service coverage, when we get to that 5th year, is just on the skin of our teeth, 1.11 against a target of 1.1. What this means is you'll likely have some cash balances, and in those future years, I think you'll be able to buy down that rate increase. So you don't need 10, 12, 14, 16, 18%, but maybe 10 and 12s all the way through, or 10 and up to 14 and cap out. But because you're going to start putting in your rate plan, which if you're going out for bonds, if you're going to take out a big loan, they want to see that the city has the means and a plan to finance that big note. Surely with 1,800 customers, $50 million is a big note. And so if our rate plan says we're willing to, if we need to, put in the rates that we need, and if you know that you have a couple other levers and dials you can pull to maybe not have to face that in the future, I think that's an upside for you. It's an upside as you present it to a bond rating agency.
So question for you. So when we're looking at the expenses versus revenue,
yes, sir,
right in here, and you're actually looking at the revenue, all these future years include what we predict as impact fees that are coming in, all the new folks that are going to be paying, companies, all that is in here.
We have included all of the growth. It's about 700 connections. The impact fees, I think, are under review currently. Cobb Finley still exploring.
I just want to go with your logic.
Yes, sir.
That you're saying that we might be able to make some other adjustments later on where we don't have to do as much.
Right.
Because we actually look better. Right?
Yes, sir. In the last several impact fee studies I've supported, we've grown that impact fee per unit or living unit equivalent at least by 25% because costs have risen so much. So with Cobb Finley's final analysis, depending on your growth, depending on the total cost, your impact fee, again, it's another one of the council's druthers. You set not only the maximum's formulaic, right? The max is a number the engineers or finance people come back with. Council sets what to assess. So if this council decides to assess more, then you may have some room to charge ratepayers less because growth will help pay for more growth.
There you go.
Yes, sir. So these are choices.
And I will say in this formula, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been very little, because we're basing it on what we have in the past, there's very little commercial growth factored into that as well.
That's correct.
So we do know there's opportunities coming, and there will be changes to that, but that would factor in that later on.
We start the process now. Yes. We start with the process with an understanding that there could be a probability of actually being less in the future for our residents. You know, even though we're looking at a bigger one as we get through the years of the percentage that we're going to be charging, it could be less.
Absolutely. We do recommend, with or without a professional consultant like our firm, this should be looked at every year with budget. I assume it is anyways. Maybe not in this detail, but your total needs are an annual decision-making process. So we're really putting forth a 26 proposed rate, fiscal 26 proposed rate. 27 through 30 are really just foreshadowing. And it's a forecast to let you know on plan this is what it's looking like. And as the mayor suggested, you get to evaluate and make decisions that may change that outcome as well.
So will that impact fee, is that for previous client or new ones?
New.
Yeah, it has to be for infrastructure that is supporting growth. Now, the infrastructure doesn't have to all be new. I share with councils and impact fee updates, City of Denton. I did theirs. In 2018, we included a reservoir built in 1950. Right? So it had capacity to serve new growth. So if you have an old line and it still supports new growth and Cobb Finley says, yes, this has 10% more capacity, they can help pay for sunk cost, but it is absolutely growth and only new connections pay that impact fee.
That's what that is used for.
Or an upsize. So if you have a 5/8 in a property and it's redeveloped to a 2-inch, they would pay the increment between those two.
Which is why they're only paying the impact fee at the time of the meter being pulled at the office.
So on the expense side, your calculation is based on new growth. What about our existing system and any maintenance? Have you looked into that, and have you paid close attention to our current system and included that into the expense part?
Yeah, to the extent the capital plan includes maintenance of infrastructure, I have it. Additionally, your O&M budget.
You look closely at what we currently have.
So, I won't.
Are you using estimates?
I'm not an engineer, so I did no field work. I didn't touch a pipe, and I probably wouldn't know what to do if I did. So to be honest, I didn't do anything around system or hydrological analysis. That's for your engineers, whether that's Cobb Finley or Kimley-Horn. That one. So those folks will tell you what your system needs. That culminates into a capital plan, and what I have is your CIP, and that goes back to that second slide, I think, where we have the $50 million of need. I trust some of that's rehab, but I think a lot of that may be growth related as well.
A lot of it's new, but I do know that they factor in our budget numbers and build in an inflation too, which does include repair costs in the budget. So there is some of that built in.
Right.
I think Cobb Finley, the purpose of going with Cobb Finley instead of TRC was, I think, we're trying to model the system more appropriately so that way we can build more of that maintenance factor into it. So that CIP obviously is fluid right now, but that will change.
The other thing I'll mention is you don't currently have a capital repair and replacement fund. And whether or not you dedicate a fund or by policy have something else, I can't recall if we talked about this in stormwater, but I think it's very prudent to do so. And as you see, your days cash on hand builds. Because we're meeting a debt service coverage that makes us put more money into our revenue than we need year to year, that builds a cash balance. So if you find yourself in 3 years in a position of we have a little more cash than we thought, you can set aside some for a rate stabilization fund, right? And say if we ever need more than 6% from our ratepayers, we're going to hit this first. You can set some aside for ongoing capital repair and replacement. So you can try to have a pay-go program that would say, if we can sweep funds aside that we can then later use for capital maintenance because we don't want to debt finance capital repairs, then you could have that dollar set aside and prescribed as well. So again, it's not so much money. Your total balance wouldn't cover your wastewater plant, right? So it's a big number relative to your days cash or operating, but it's not going to solve all the CIP needs. You're not accumulating an enormous amount of cash that couldn't find a use within 1 year on a capital project, is my point. So yeah, sorry I couldn't answer that. Yes, I've checked it all, but I know we have built in.
To make sure that was part of the factoring.
Yeah, so we took the fiscal 25 budget, the 26 expected budget, and we've allowed for inflation on staffing. We didn't grow headcount. To my knowledge, I don't think we did. So we've held that constant. So we didn't add staffing, but we certainly put in sort of a continuation plus inflation of the budget that will be proposed for 2026. All right, so again, all this works. These are the bill impacts. This is your typical residential user, 5,500 gallons of water and sewer, currently paying under $50 at $49.30. Next year, with a 10% increase on wastewater, that's about half the bill, it makes a 5% increase. So less than $2.50 increase on a monthly bill for the resident. That number does grow. You'll see to $450, $555, up to $865. If we continue the plan and we need the wastewater rates to go up each year as proposed.
So this, just to make sure, so this does not include the fee that we have for the storm water?
No, sir. No, this is not a total bill. There's no solid waste factored in.
So we'll still have that?
Yes, sir. Yeah. This is just the water and wastewater components. Good question. Small business, similar, right? Because this is a 5/8 inch meter assumption. If it were a 2 inch, and so depending on whether or not you'll have a 2 inch small business account, if it were a larger meter, they'd pay more. But next year, they are treated pretty much just like a resident, with the exception of they won't have a winter average on their wastewater consumption. But assuming the total here, this is a lower average at 4,500. You'll see the impacts to small business. And then to a 2 inch meter, this is your most prevalent meter size for commercial. Most of my clients, this is the most prevalent meter size for commercial. So this is that impact to a typical 2 inch meter that has 75,000 gallons of water per month and 75,000 of sewer. Currently paying a little under $900, moving up $60 to $959. So we always compare. I think I did this in drainage too, but more so in water. Your system is not their system, right? They may have invested earlier or later, but you have a number: Lotes, Alamo Heights, San Antonio is going to be hard to compare to. They have a whole plethora of rate design options to help different user groups there. And then effectively you'll see Terrell Hills topping the charts as your comparator set now. But right here in the middle, even with the increase in fiscal year 2026, you don't change in relative position. From 43 to your next comparator at 61, I would say you have a lot of headroom if your relative position was something of concern, because you're not even touching that next unit.
Now, the numbers you're using for the others, those are the ones that they're currently at.
Correct.
So if they're proposing, because I know one of them is proposing to go.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. So I can only know what's on the record today. And if, as you get into the budget, if perhaps Zach has better information about what other city managers and admins are putting in front of their councils, you could have what they're looking at. But yes, sir, this is even today. So many of these will I assume many of these will go up because the trend is water and wastewater is not getting any cheaper.
The proposed one, we're still going to be, based on what I'm thinking the rates on some of these other folks, we're still going to be like $20 to $30 less than.
Right. Right. It's a function of how much water is consumed as well. This is at 2,000 gallons. This is that lowest unit that we typically consider. Frankly, it's generally the widower that we're concerned about. How is their bill going to be affected that we often display. So that's what we're showing you here. We showed you 5,500 on the prior slide. So here's a commercial comparison. Again, similar positioning. Top middle, moving up an iota. Again, not touching the next neighbor, and they too will be looking at rate increases likely on commercial. There is not a specific small business comparator, by the way. You're not the only person in the world with it, but we didn't have a comparison because not all of them have a small business rate structure. Okay. So that's why I don't have that comparison for you. The next couple slides really start to dig into what could be conservation price signaling and your drought surcharges. So I'd like to go back a slide, I think, because I really don't want to cloud the primary rate discussion with this. That's kind of a sidebar. It's a different topic around your drought surcharges. But any other thoughts, comments on the proposed rate plan, and certainly for fiscal 26?
What's the magic formula for Alamo Heights, San Antonio, and Helotes?
Commercial is likely the answer. Helotes, I don't know. I don't know that community. So it could be that they...
Commercial, or
what's that?
less commercial, more residential?
More commercial typically will drive the rate down.
Of the overall rate. We're looking at the
yes.
commercial comparison.
Yeah.
What are the regionals?
Yeah, so again, I don't know the community of Helotes, but Alamo Heights and San Antonio and Castle Hills all have that outgrowth of San Antonio. So in that suburban, if you will, ring, and they're going to have more commercial, and commercial pays a higher total bill typically. I haven't compared each of them, but that would probably be the reasoning.
Some of these places, the ring is going to be the ring. They're not going to grow anywhere.
That's true too.
They're capped out where, so when you look at some of these other communities, like even San Antonio, that's, based on annexation, they can grow, but some of them are pretty capped. So it's easier for them, let me just put it that way.
And if they're deferring maintenance and not reinvesting. I worked with the Central Texas community with like 900 people, and they needed like $40 million for a plant because they just waited so long. They didn't do any maintenance, and they just kept waiting, and then it hit them all at once. So the age of their infrastructure, their consumer patterns is a very affluent community. Will have a lot of people that irrigate a lot, and they're happy to pay a $500 water bill in July. And we say thank you, and we remind them to conserve, but thank you at the same time. And so there's a demographic difference, there's a usage pattern, and then I really do think commercial makes the biggest difference. And certainly if they have any industrial. I think the city may have an industrial customer, or at least a large volume water user in the future, if not industrial. So if they've got 30 of those, that can tilt the scale their favor for the other ratepayers. Any other questions on the base? And I can go back to the plan. I just don't want to get into drought surcharges before I kind of focus on the plan. This is the plan. So in 26, no change on water. For the resident, we do the meter equivalency at 20%. And then we have 10% on all wastewater charges in 2026 for all customers.
It'd be across the middle.
Yeah, well, I know that's our biggest project. Everything else is already covered. The only thing that we have open right now is the expansion project.
Yeah, and I think the biggest, one of the things I conveyed to Matthew early on was, a couple years ago we hit residents with a pretty big increase, I think, just because we were so far behind. And so I think in part of being able to keep rates generally the same for residential for a few years, I think helps out tremendously for our residents. So that was really, I think, a big factor, and I was happy to see that when they obviously came back with this, particular proposal on the residential side. And we do know that obviously commercial is impacting our system more, and just naturally that happens. So I think moving in that direction is smart for our system. and our utility as a whole. But obviously, it's a council decision. So.
And I think it's just discussion. So I wasn't looking for a vote. I just wanted to make sure I covered that.
Yeah, this is just discussion. We want to get some direction, making sure so he can finalize his numbers. If we want to build in higher residential, users as an impact, so that they can build that in. I mean, that's the stuff we're looking for this evening, so we can kind of come to some conclusions on some of this before we bring it for public hearing and all that. So.
Yeah, so with that in mind, if I go to the next slide, maybe we visit that. Actually, 2 slides? Where am I? Here we go. So we'll use commercial as a visual for the meter sizes. If I were to put in a larger meter premium on a residential customer, would you want it to be the same 20% equivalency factor? Or would you want it to be a lesser factor for a resident?
You mean to go to a 1-inch line?
Yes, sir. If they have again, that break point's another important question, but if they have more than a 3/4, so a 1-inch, do we want to put in half of the commercial differential? Do we want to say 10%, and we're going to cap it at 50% in 5 years when we're done with all this? And for illustration, let me go back to what 100% looks like on today's rates. You do have a 2-inch meter or 2 out there for residents. We've pulled this card in other communities, and we had people change their meter. I'm like, that's fine. If you don't need a 2-inch, don't have a 2-inch. So that's another potential on a few of these handful of.
Well, that's the reason why the numbers, how they're broken down.
Yes, sir. I've got it.
Maybe that'll help that conversation.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that will help the conversation.
Sure.
If we get that,
okay.
Just having an idea, because.
Okay.
Yeah, if we're only affecting 3 customers, then what's the point?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how much are we going to be able to make a difference on what we actually have?
Yeah, I'd guess it's a dozen to 2 dozen at most residents that are 1 inch and higher. But if you have a large ranch or something else, you might have had a large line at the curb, so you could feed a barn and feed some other. So I don't know what you got out here, but that's my assumption.
The size is based on the size of the meter going
yes,
into,
sir.
right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So as long as the meter stays the same, then it would be.
Yeah, it's not so the equivalency is based on the continuous sort of demand on that meter. And so as it steps up, you need about 2/3 more instantaneous water for that 1 inch than you do a 3/4. Right, and that's why it's a 1.67 or 1.67 factor. So if they don't change their meter, or if their meter's not larger, it's not a function of how much water they use, it's a function of how much could they use at a given time.
Correct.
But go ahead and introduce, at least for consideration, a change that would have a residential factor, and then it can be considered. Is that some okay? And I'll do that on everything 1 inch and higher.
I think the biggest thing, like you mentioned on there, is just looking at our sewer. That's the big one. Starting off, since we're going to do it year by year, right? I mean, we're going to look at the next 5 years, but we're going to be doing the snapshot for 2026.
Yes, sir.
Based on what you're proposing, that's the one that we've got to pay a little bit closer attention, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to Matthew's point, and not to take business away from Matthew, but I think looking at it every year and then really taking that 5-year mark to bring in an actual consultant, to really see where we're at. But then each year in between and the interim years, us doing that analysis to figure out where we're at, or on a smaller scale. So.
Yeah, no, I fully support that. If your staff can handle it, we're happy to come alongside, give them some helpful hints of what we do. We can do that for sure.
But if the numbers change drastically,
then he'll call me, and we'll look at it. We'll look at it. Yeah. An upshot, though, I think you just handled a pretty large water leak, so that's a change in your favor. So congrats to you and staff for finding it. So I do have a couple of other things. Were there any other rate design elements when Zach brings us back with budget you want to see for fiscal 26?
okay.
Sort of a hypothetical for me to throw at you? Okay. So with that, I did want to touch on this, and Zach, tell me if I'm going too long, or do you want to lead off the drought surcharge, or do you want me just to start in?
No, I mean, obviously, council knows, I asked them to look at Matthew's group to look at, so we're not being arbitrary in, how we're charging a drought surcharge. You remember we did adopt that language to be able to do that in stages 4 and 5, but we never adopted a rate, obviously, to charge based on that. And then in talking with Matthew, I think there's some ways to even change that even a little bit more or figure that out. So he's looking at that. So.
Yeah, and just very quickly, what I have on screen is the residential sort of frequency distribution. This has sort of the user's bend, the total bills per year. That bullet at the top is sort of predicated on the 5,000 gallon, which is your current threshold for the drought contingency surcharge, I believe, as
yes.
And so about 60% of your bills don't touch that anyways, right? And what I understand is you've been operating in stage 4 for some time, and stage 5 came for a hot minute, and it went away within days. And so a couple things come to mind. One, ultimately, the council can advise Zach and team to go administer this, or you can set more specific parameters. So do we ever touch stage 5 unless it's been in place for 2 weeks? Right? If you think about, on balance, your water bill comes in, and if last month we touched stage 5 for 5 days, I don't think you want staff to have to figure out the usage for 5 days and prorate a bill. I'll go with that. I don't think you want your bill to reflect a stage 5 rate when it was 5 days. And so does it need to be 2 weeks or more at a stage 5? And if it's more than half the bill, you're going to get the stage 5 surcharge. So there's some nuts and bolts policy practices to kind of put around that. But additionally, you may look at using the thresholds that are currently in place today. And so on screen, you have the 3,000 gallon, the 10,000 gallon, and some others. What I've recommended to a lot of communities well before stage 4 is to start sending some price signals earlier. Now, I don't know if you can actually mitigate water consumption in Lytle. I have some communities where people don't listen and people use the water anyways. But a price signal can say a lot. And so if stage 3, again, not that you can prevent stage 4 within Lytle, it may be a macro regional issue. But if you were in stage 3, you could put, for instance, a premium on that top tier and don't touch any others, right? Stage 2, rates are as they are. Stage 3, we're going to add a premium to the top tier. Stage 4, a premium on the top 2 tiers. Stage 5, you better not water, right? And we're going to put a premium on a lot of them. So in practice, there are a lot of ways to do it. And I didn't come with, you should do this recommended rate action. I just came to share, as we talked, that you have some options to employ. And I would always suggest you start turning on the heat before it gets real bad. Because if you wait till stage 5 to put on any pressure, you're going to be in stage 5 more than you want, maybe. And if it's not a regional stage 5, it could be your own capacity limitations here in the city.
So is the surcharge a incentive to reduce, or is it a penalty if you go over your average?
It is, in my perspective, a surcharge for a drought is a penalty for overage.
Overage, right?
It is a penalty for being a high discretionary water user. Because it is a drought time and we have limitations, right? Once a week watering, 2 hours, not between whatever 10 and 7 p.m. or something. I think this is a stick. I think this is the carrot is all year long you can enjoy better rates if you conserve and you don't go up the premium scale.
Exactly.
That's just normal, but that next marginal unit, even in good times, stage 0, right? We have all the water in the world. Well, pumping it to you still costs, and we have so much capacity. So water is going to be scarce no matter how much water is on the ground. Your system can only move so much. So that to say, I think the tiered approach makes sense, and it's not a penalty in your normal rate setting. But I think anytime you bolt on a surcharge, it is certainly to discourage wasteful water use. And because it's not meant to just pay the bills, right? Then we talked about that a little bit as well. So if we want to mitigate a revenue shortfall and we have a drought surcharge, we don't affect the volumetric rate. We put a surcharge on the minimums. And I had this. I think it was Burke-Burnett. We needed more wells in Burke-Burnett. They didn't have them yet, and they had a surcharge on the bill. It was like $2.50 on all minimums until they had enough supply to meet everybody's normal demand, right? And so if it is for revenue sufficiency to make sure we can pay the bills, then it's not at all a stick. It's just a have to, right? It's just to make sure we make payroll. I don't think you're going to be in that position. You've been in stage 4 a long time. Longer than I thought anybody could be in stage 4. Honestly. But yeah, so in my opinion, once you start putting in a surcharge, it is meant to enforce your regulation around water use. So effectively, it's a penalty for wasteful use.
So, question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you came up with 5,000 gallons. Is that not to exceed 5,000 gallons per month during a one-period year?
Well, so the 5,000 here, truthfully, is just the council's current draft or current policy.
Yeah, that's what we adopted in the utility.
On a stage 4 or stage 5?
No, it was across the board.
Across the board. Okay.
Yeah, regardless of the stage. So we adopted the 5,000 gallons would not to exceed, and that's each bill period.
So month.
Yeah, that's month to month.
Monthly.
Yes. Any bill period where you exceed 5,000, a surcharge could be assessed. Is what we adopted. I think what Matthew, in looking at it, since we already have these built-in tiers, he's saying don't necessarily have the 5,000 gallons anymore. Just go back to your tiers where you're saying we're only going to affect tiers 1 and 2 at stage 3. Stage 4, you're getting tier 3, and then stage 5, you're getting all the tiers. It doesn't matter where you're at, you're getting a surcharge. So that was kind of the suggestion that we had kind of talked about. So basically getting rid of the 5,000 gallon and just going to the matching up to the tiers that already exist in our system. So.
And while 5,000 makes sense on a resident, your 10,000 on a commercial it's a lot harder road to tow, right? Because some need 80,000 gallons to do business.
Yeah.
So surcharge me all you want. I got to do the cleaning or bottle the water or whatever it is in process that they need that water for. And so emulating your tiered approach might be more consistent with what they're used to. And then setting a different bar for residents. And I know I've just put this out in a Central Texas community. We put a fifth tier. We just added on a fifth tier. From the third tier to the fourth tier, it's already 100% more. It's double the rate. We're talking $14 per 1,000 gallons. And because they had some people still going over 50,000, they said, put on another one. Charge them more. And this is on their normal rate schedule, right? So we put the stick in the normal rates because we just had a lot of people that were not bad actors, but they liked the water. So that said, when you employ this, and that's what I asked Zach. I said, great, y'all have this policy. How do you enact it now? Because you live in stage 4. So should the surcharge be, and that was my question, is the surcharge now a part of the normal rate? How much is it? And I think there are some things to flesh out. So I don't assume you have all those answers, but when you put them into place, they will affect your revenue, and that could also affect the rate plan, depending on if everyone observes and uses less water, maybe less revenue even with the surcharge. So we just bring it up here to kind of broach the topic. I've done it in a few communities. Zach thought it was important. I know that you have this in play, but since the surcharge isn't really defined as an amount yet, and we don't know when to employ it and how to put it on a bill yet, I just thought I'd bring up the topic.
And Council, just to be able to go back, the reason that we put some of this is because we were actually given the stages then started restricting us how much we're supposed to be pumping, right? So that's how we have to be able to show that, hey, we're being a little bit more conservative in the system we're doing it.
So don't need any guidance. I really just add this to the presentation so that I can be here to answer questions, to probably talk too long about it already. But happy to field any questions you may have.
Just thinking out loud, and I don't know how this could be implemented, but I like the CPS bill where they send you out, you're in the top 20% of usage in your neighborhood. Something like that gets the residents to say, whoa, I'm using a lot of electricity. Same thing can be on the water. If we start getting into a drought state, and I'm one of the top users in the residential, I need to rethink of what I do. And that would be a good campaign to run.
Well, and I believe long term, with us switching out the manual meters to the AMI, and if I don't know who was on council at that time, but there was the idea that there would be a customer portal side eventually once we got more of these switched out, where we could have the antennas where it'd be easier to read. They could literally go on, they can set alerts to, hey, I'm going over, and they can see some of that kind of stuff that gives them markers of where I'm at relative to my neighbors. So that's all built in, but obviously that was kind of pushed until we get more of the meters replaced. So.
Like you said, it was just food for thought. That would be a good way of
showing the
Yeah.
users, hey, you're in your top,
Yeah,
top percent of the usage
for sure.
for your area.
Well, I mean, you see one resident on there, or we have
In large bill.
30 plus, so pretty high. And so that's
So based on, just looking at this, our residents are doing good.
Yeah, you have pretty relatively low consumption on average. Absolutely.
They're doing good.
it's those few that we need to.
Everything already died.
It's true.
Yeah.
Brown's the new green. Brown's the new green.
No, but it's good. It's a way to be able to measure.
I mean, my suggestion would be, let's change the ordinance language to match up to the tiers and determine which tiers we want to be affected in which stage. And that would be my suggestion, to council. And so if that's the direction that council wants to see, then I'm happy to start bringing that ordinance language back for y'all to look at. And then we determine the number, the actual dollar amount we charge under that.
And I would definitely recommend an easy number so that it's easy for your billing office, for anyone to explain. So instead of $1.10, because it's scientifically the right number, $1 is the premium on some stage tier, right? But because it's not set specifically to recover a needed missing revenue, there's not a right answer to that. It's then pretty much a council and staff, recommendation as to what price premium would be effective. All right, so I show this for commercial as well. Again, what I don't know is all your commercial users, right? But I do think a single 10,000 may not be the silver bullet. And so maybe if you followed the tiered approach there, and maybe the threshold's even higher for commercial users, maybe you reserve that 10,000 or even the 5,000 for the small business class that you have, if you haven't already envisioned that class being affected differently. So I'm not sure if there's a small business component in the drought contingency, but if you rewrite it, you may envision that user group differently than your big commercial. So those are some thoughts. Future considerations, real quick. Other things that you can do, I'd recommend you do is remove and reduce the included volumes in the minimum bill. So the meaty part of the bone is where everyone's using water, right? And everyone's using, most everyone, right? You see 86% are using more than 1,000, and then 76% are using 2,000 and 3,000. The fact that all the volumes up to 3,000 are included in the minimum doesn't do much to send a price signal, but it also is missing revenue, effectively. So your wastewater side, you're charging 66 cents or 60 cents for the first 3,000. So I'm not saying they need to pay $8 per 1,000, but maybe you move into charging for that tier to enhance your revenue potential from even the folks using less water. Another, evaluate the potential to reduce the number of tiers. This is something I think Lynette probably was in favor of more than most on staff, but it could also fall on your utility billing folks. You have a lot of them. The reason to reduce tiers is to make it easier for a resident to understand, and so you wouldn't have to have your commercial structure equal to your residential structure. Again, this doesn't do a lot. It doesn't fix anything, but when we talk about user rates, sometimes user understanding or the ability to explain it could be simplified and still generate the same revenue. That's really a nominal, but it's a note. The other is currently you charge a differential. It's $8.50 more on the minimum or base charge on water. On wastewater, you don't charge commercial a premium more than a resident. So very quickly, if you were to mirror that, you'd have $8.50 per commercial connection. And so it's not uncommon to see commercial pay more than residents. It's even true here already on water. So the city council could consider charging more on the base charge for wastewater to commercial. Again, these are tools to employ in future years instead of getting up to 18% on the wastewater bill in 2030. You could restructure the residential wastewater charges. Again, an inclining block rate is usually set, again, by the textbook that our industry uses, is to talk about peak demands on a water system. There's nothing dictating you can't put that on wastewater, but you're actually talking about total flow at a plant, a wastewater plant, not necessarily the peak flow from the users, because they're generally sending the waste in a constant stream. Your peaking at the plant is probably an I&I or rain event more than anything else. And so the nexus between additional volumes and flow is not the same per kgal on wastewater as it would be on water. So again, another tool, and you can stop charging 60 cents per 1,000 gallon and charge everyone some rate that's more consistent with our industry norm is 5-ish right now. We're not seeing a lot of wastewater rates less than $5 per 1,000 gallons because it costs a lot to treat and it's pretty expensive when we need a new plant. And lastly, implementation of these drought stage surcharges that will produce some additional revenue if the intent is to not make it a revenue source you rely on to pay the bills. If we want to employ it as a stick and we want to say anybody that's in that group is going to have their dollars move somewhere else, then all your surcharge revenue could go to pay the O&M if you're short or capital. So those are my last kind of ramblings around rate considerations. These are things that you could consider in the future. I think all of them could help mitigate the percentage increases that residents may see in 2030 for all of this debt that we're bringing on. So with that, I do say thank you. I'm still here to answer any questions you may have, and I can still take additional guidance from Zach if I don't get it here and you have some insight he can relay to me later. I'll be glad to do that too.
I think because it's already coming from the council before. I think my goodness, let me go back. The drought stage rate, I think we might as well go ahead and include it as discussion, even though it's for future considerations. I think we've already started talking about it, started doing that. We might as well implement it along with the other recommendations that were brought forward.
And that's honestly, I mean, even if it's in the next couple of days, or as we continue to go through the month, if there's anything that comes up of, hey, we should look at this, that's the direction that I'm looking for, so we can make sure to tackle that before the end of the fiscal year and going into the next fiscal year.
What do you think, Council? Go ahead and start working on that one. We already started on the ordinance with that. Yeah, so we might as well include that one. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Good info.
Thank you.
Good info. You see, we're not that mad at you. You know, everything's good. We're all good. It's all good. All right, Zach. We're going to go ahead and move on to number 5, and this is a presentation, discussion, and direction for the budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 and council priorities.
All right, so I'm going to let individual departments come up from the general fund and go ahead and go through their different ones. In the packet, I arranged them according to how the order will go over them. I will just throw a general statement that obviously we're still working through some of the revenues and the expenses and even kind of aligning those appropriately in some of these. So this is just the initial request kind of by the individual departments and where they think the expenses is where they're tasked with kind of looking at where they expect to want to go. But even from the version that was included in the packet has changed even as of today with Yvonne and I working through stuff. So it's very fluid. It's very fluid. So just want to throw that out there. Once the individual departments, then I'll wrap up the kind of the admin side and all the other departments that kind of fall under myself, and then we'll go to the priorities and talk about healthcare as well, which was also included. So
Zach, is it safe to assume that the reason we don't have public works here is because we're still working on what we just finished talking about?
Yeah, so we're just focused on general funds. It's easier to split those individual departments and then worry about utilities, especially in light of everything going on here with the rate study, and then much more fluidity.
That all ties into that.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. Matt, you're good to go if you're...
All right.
you don't need to stick around.
I just can't sneak out quietly. No crew.
You're good. You're good.
So we'll start off with animal control. And come on up. Obviously, Melinda's first time doing this with y'all, so have some patience, please. But honestly, just go through the expenses and where you wanted to add or subtract and why is really what they're looking for. on your expenses. Okay, I'll help you out. I'll help you out. Okay, so on animal control, and what I will say is on all of these, the salaries and wages right now is just built in the 3%. We have looked at the up to the 5% like we discussed. We'll present that at a different time, but just so what y'all know y'all are looking at is is on the 3%. I would say, obviously, that changes the normal overtime, Social Security, that kind of stuff, the fringe benefits, all that accordingly. Really, Melinda, the only change she had was adding $1,000 in office technology. There is a computer that needs to be replaced in the main office section. It's pretty bad off, and so that was really the impetus behind that. We did decrease $1,000 in repairs and maintenance of the vehicle, and we increased utilities a little bit, just general stuff like that, and took out about $500 out of seminars and travel and training as well. So everything else stayed the same. So very, very similar stuff, but obviously, Melinda, about what we have going on over there. And
increased maintenance on vehicles because of a new vehicle.
Why do I need it decreased?
Yeah, on the vehicle maintenance.
Was to add to the technology.
Okay, so she's just trying to take away from that to add to technology.
Yes.
You do have mostly new vehicles out there, right?
We have the new Ford. Yeah.
And it's still under warranty, except
Yes.
for like tires and oil.
Yes.
They have the old van.
Yes.
But I think you guys just recently did some work on it.
Daniel had some work done.
Right?
Daniel had some work done in the last year on that before he left. Yeah.
So some of the items we talked about last year, you probably know more.
Yes.
Have they been addressed, for example, the AC, the exhaust fans, the awnings, I believe?
Yeah.
Has all
So.
that been addressed, or is it going to be included in this year's budget?
Yeah, so I'll let. I know the exhaust fans have all been installed, so that was all taken care of under the current budget. Some of the eaves have been, contractor has I think come out and looked at it, and I'm not sure about replaced or not yet for like the exterior, the eaves of the building. Yeah.
The catapult.
Like
Yeah, see, we discussed this last year.
Yeah.
I know a lot of it's been budgeted.
So I think the biggest one that still has not been addressed is the doors, the replacing of the roll-up doors, the garage doors. So that was the big thing. So that would still need to be tackled under this particular budget.
Can we fix that? We fixed that when he was there to fix the doorway doors.
It was always intended, but it never got.
it never happened.
No, it's never been done. That would be included in the $5,000 for the capital improvements to the AC facility. So
That would be included to go ahead and take care
that
of
would be in that.
the doors?
Yes.
Okay. I know. I'm trying to remember.
I want to say he had come and said we fixed them. The only thing we were still waiting on was the awning on the outside where it was falling apart.
Right.
Oh, you're talking about the pillars?
The pillars. And
Yeah.
the pillars.
That's
The pillars
been
been
fixed.
taken.
Yeah, those have
But I
been
want to say the
fixed.
doors, he had said that they got fixed.
Okay. I will make a note. Sounds like no, but I'll make it take a look. Yeah.
We did take care of the AC, right?
Yes, the AC's been fixed.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
AC,
Yes.
the big
And then
that was a big one.
And the outside, the front canopy's also fixed.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just the garage doors have never been fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just can't remember.
Yeah. It was,
I made a note, so we'll, Yvonne and I will take a look and see if we can find if that was. If we got a quote and then they never, I mean, that could have been, and yeah. So.
You're still looking at that extra container going back to the other.
Yes, to the
facility,
mission.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I do, I want to note on, let's see, where's it at? I think the high, the physical activity that you're seeing in repairs and maintenance, which is like 14,000, is where I think the staff had been plugging that particular extra structure, so that's why there's such a high amount there under the current fiscal activity. So that would be going away. So that's why we're knocking it back down to the 4,000 for this year, or keeping it the same, because that was not intended to be there. So it was only because of the pests that we had issues with. So.
Council? What I looked at in the ordinary, but what I'd like to see, and if you can, like, when you go back to salaries and wages, and this goes for every department of where they're at. For example, where the director's at, where
we have all
employees are at, and then see, what the actual 3% at on top of their salary.
Yep.
Right.
We have all that.
That's something that we can get for the next, budget.
So this that you gave us right now, this is at 3%. Already.
This is 3%. For the most part, Yvonne and I have made a few changes where, like, the overall compensation, which was that Christmas pay that we always give, has always been factored in salaries, so we kind of removed that, put that into the salary line item. So there's some changes, but generally, yes, this is the 3% for the most part.
Matthew said, I'm good with this 3%, and it needed merit increases.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have to look at the overall picture. Just across the board, everybody gets, this flat number.
And we'd like to see where everybody's at. Maybe somebody's do the 5, somebody's do the 3.
Yeah.
Or on the higher end.
That's why, again, I think for the budget, it's good to do
I'm with you,
3%.
but I think we need to check with legal because we are restricted on performance.
Right.
Yeah,
The merit would obviously have to do with performance.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
We need to stay away from just you've been here 5 years.
I'm with you, but we got to be very careful about, hey, this person is, and they have done a great job, and we're going to go ahead and give them a higher based on the performance. I think there's a little sticky portion about that. I would say we need to talk to legal and kind of get an idea of how we actually do that.
So what we can do, Yvonne did up a spreadsheet, literally 2% all the way up to 5%. So with everybody's salary, what that looks like across the board, all the fringe benefits, retirement, all that kind of stuff. So we can provide that to y'all at another meeting to show all that, and then that'll give you the across the board, and then we can have that additional conversation with the attorney to figure out and go from there.
Yeah, I think we just need to make sure. I'm with you, but we just need to make sure. In a sense, there are some stipulations of what we can do with that. So,
Yeah.
Anything else? All right. You see, it wasn't too bad. Okay, next year the next one you come by yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, not a problem.
All right.
All right, next we got library. Sandra has to do it by herself. She's done it already.
Sandy.
All right. So we wanted to increase the summer reading program by about $300. Right now we're at $2,200. We wanted to go to $2,500 because we're trying to offer more stuff, and some of the stuff has gone up in price. Like some of the program, like bringing out those people that do that foam, they went up in price. So we'd like to try a little more money there. And then I think, look at this again. I think the only other increase was going to be like the dues and association, because we're at 1,000 and make it just to 2,000. And let me see.
A bit on the repairs and maintenance, about 1,000.
That one's 5,000, I think.
But you're proposing 6. So it's
okay. I had said 6 on that one. I forgot about that. Yes. And then the dues and association, instead of going all the way to 35, we only actually need 2,000. So.
2025. I went up to 25.
Oh, 25. Okay, that would work too, because I was going to include April for the TLA, not the conference, but just for the membership. And I think that was it, because we were working on trying to get the lights repaired in the library.
They out?
Some of them are working off of ballast, because the building is, some of the parts of the building were built in 74, and then in 89, and then 2008. So it's just kind of like.
Now, do our city maintenance go over there and do stuff?
They'll repair the light, like if the light's out, and they'll come in and change it out. But like
You put in a work order and it goes
yes,
out?
yes, but
So we, on this particular,
Yeah.
on the light situation over there, we do have a contractor that's already made the purchase for the lights and some additional ballasts that have to be, just because it's a larger scale, there's some issues with the lights over there. So that's already been purchased as part of this budget, and he's going to go plan to take care of that. So, but we've had some AC issues recently, just little things here and there. So that's why we just wanted to add a little bit of extra cushion in there. So
I know one of the issues we had, they might have gotten fixed already, was upgrading the security cameras.
that's what I'm working on.
That's still on the
Yeah.
There, or can we
That's still
add
on
it in there for that?
It's still on our list, but that would be something that we can definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the time right now to, if we can, fit that in. And get it
Yeah,
done
I was looking at
across
some
the
options
board,
to
you know?
see what we can do with that.
Correct.
So.
I had so they had done changes to the security system out at Animal Control, and I had asked Daniel to get with Cassandra, but obviously everything with Daniel happened, and so that didn't happen. And obviously,
I mean,
there's
it's
another
something we can
focus.
look at improvements, and it's there. I mean, let's look at it.
Okay.
The lights you're talking about, are they
They're like,
considered like fluorescent lights? I'm kind of surprised we're still using fluorescent.
Well, we're using fluorescent almost everywhere.
yes.
I know we transitioned the entire community center, the entire police department's been transitioned to LED, cut ballast out.
And that
would be better.
As a part of that, yeah.
And LED actually uses less than the fluorescent bulb.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah, we actually cut, well,
That's probably what they're waiting for.
That's what we're trying to do.
trade-off in replacing the lights and a reduced electric bill.
Right.
That's what they've been doing. They've been replacing them as they needed, so it works out.
Yeah, but I heard them talking about you have a contract to have a guy come in and do ballast work.
Yeah, so it's mostly to change out to LED. There's a couple situations where ballast, they can't, just because of the way they
I don't understand why they did it that way.
Most of them we can change at this point to LED and get by, and then change later on.
$25 you can get a
Right.
LED set, and it's less than the cost of the ballast.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
the whole system.
But that'll be taken care of current budget. So
Yeah, but that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, because the corner of the library, like in the back section where the 2008 part was built, it's very dark back there, and that we have like it's the nonfiction section, but it's also paperback and Christian fiction. So it's like I don't want them to have to come in with flashlights trying to see what we're trying to see.
Nice, right?
Make it look like I don't know.
I remember our nonfiction in our library was down in the bottom.
Oh yeah, it's convenient. Scary. He's like, I'm gonna go down there, right? Yeah, that's basically what we're looking at.
So this person's going to affect all departments, but because I asked previously on the new computers that have come in, are we all Windows 11? Or are we still?
There's all Windows 11 except for 2 computers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if they can upgrade those 2, but everything is Windows 11.
Okay, because if it's not, let's say the department still has outdated or not outdated, but non-Windows 11, and they should be included in the CyberArk and whatever security, right?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the staff computers are still on 10, but for the most part,
But you have plans on getting
yes, to get those upgraded.
All the construction on the outside, is it all been completed? Are they still working on it?
What the
Like on the parking lot and all that?
Sidewalks and roads.
sidewalks? Yeah, they're still working on them. Yeah,
they're still working on
that. Yes. So.
Should be the end of this month.
Any other questions? No.
I'm not.
All right. Thank you.
Sandra. Appreciate it. Richie.
One thing there, that PD Leo's allocation is 45,300. I think that's a typo, I guess. Looking at that.
Yes,
That's a top. They just added an extra digit to that. So that's money we at the very top. Yeah, the revenue part. That's money we get from the comptroller's office for training. We're getting right now. It depends on how much they give you, and it's around. Let me see, about 2,500. Yeah, it should be about 2,500, not 45,000. Anyway.
There's money being moved around.
There you go. So.
Is that for the whole whole department or for?
No, the state, we have our own training budget, and then the comptroller's office collects money off some sort of tax they collect. About legislature requires them to send a portion of that back. So for a department, and it varies, it's based on number of full-time employees. So we're at 12 full-time employees, but when we filled it out, we're probably at 10, because it has to be. It can't be like if you got vacancies. It's how many you actually have when you have to sign the paper. So I think this year they gave an extra payment. So I think we got around 2,400 this year. Now about 7-10 years ago they did away with it in one budget cycle, so you didn't get anything for 2 or 3 years. But I think now it's pretty much going to push. So that was just a typo there. We're over in some line items, and most of them, the reason is, with the exception of the vehicles, but I'll talk about the vehicles, but we added a 12th officer. So that was not budgeted this year. So what we did was, we had figured the price, I think I watched the tape, Matt told council we'd probably need $8,000 additionally to outfit that person with equipment. Well, we ended up getting some seizure money, so we were offset that. But it pushed a few things over, because when you hire a new person, besides just the equipment, we have to pay another license for a body cam. We have to pay another license for their reporting system, and there's a startup fee on that's about $1,500 or something for the startup fee. We have to pay another license for the ticket writing system. Those three, of course, there's another email address and whatever goes with that. So is there something else you can think of? But that's just the stuff you pay just to have the position, So, and then the other stuff was the equipment. We were able to buy some of that, uniforms, taser. We bought that out of that seizure money. So that's why a few of these things like that are over. Let me look here. What really is something of course, with that, cell phone went up because we get the small cell phone allowance and you get a uniform allowance. So neither of that was factored in this budget. So that also, for that new officer that came on in March, it was not budgeted. Those are also going to be pushed out into the budget. But again, in general, it's a pretty small amount. Postage is one thing that we went down a little bit. We're over a little bit right now, I believe, but we are no longer going to be able to mail stuff to the lab, which we normally mail stuff to the lab in Austin about 2 or 3 times a week. We are now going to have to physically drive it to Austin, and we're going to have an appointment. So we are going to be going to Austin, and we've got a lot, guys are doing a lot of DWIs, so we've got blood. We're not going to be able to keep all that stuff, so we are going to be, so if y'all need something along the way, call us, because we're going to be probably going to Austin.
Stop by a restaurant.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Does it have to be?
Well, that's the problem. They want that chain of custody, so they're not even doing a drop box. We've got to basically make an appointment with them to drop off the stuff. So it's going to be a real yes, everywhere in Texas. Now you can take it to the nearest lab, but there is no lab in San Antonio. Our closest labs are Corpus and Austin, and they're both within about 15 minutes, depending on. Yeah, I mean that's what we got to look at.
Traffic's better this way,
sir.
Traffic's better up Corpus.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, once we got to start doing that, we have to start. Yeah, well, that'd be one. Yeah,
but the restaurants and the stores are better.
That's exactly right. That's what I was thinking. There's some police supplies and Cabela's up there. But so that's something that's going to affect us. I mean, we're going to lose a lot of man hours, traveling to Austin. So I don't know how smaller departments, they only have 2 or 3 people. I mean, but they're probably not making the arrests that we're making. So, yeah, that starts, it's mandatory September 1st, but they'll start letting you do it as if you'd want to July 1st. So our postage is going to go down, but the time spent doing that is going to be a real pain.
So is that additional cost going to be reflected in the fees and penalties?
Or would that be more?
No, none of that. That is all something. Well, it is, but it doesn't come to us. All that goes to the county court and the district court. So we won't. We don't get any fees from those. We don't get any of that.
Is that on any kind of overtime or having to bring an officer in?
No, I mean we're hoping we have enough staff right now. Now, if we were about 8 or 9 officers, it could be. You're talking about paying somebody overtime to drive to Cabela's and eat on 6th Street or something. But we're not. But we've got enough officers now where we can absorb it in. Like Danny or something. We'll just have to make our trip, and I'm thinking you'll go up there and pick up stuff. Maybe drop. You'll have to get appointments. Hopefully, you can get. And then you got to watch traffic, and then you're going to have to, maybe at the same time you stop back by Sam's.
Is there a window of being able to drop it off when you collect anything like that?
Well, what scares us is the blood. The blood is the issue. Yeah, the blood is the issue. They used to want us to refrigerate blood. Right now, we're doing a couple DWIs a week, sometimes with blood, if not more. So, the blood, that's going to be the issue. The drugs, but the problem is the prosecutor is going to tell you we need it to the lab as soon as possible because we're not moving on the case until you get it to the lab results come in. So it's all, nothing's going to happen until the lab gets it and gets it back. So the more you hold it, but again, this is statewide. It's nothing, it's because, it wasn't because nothing we did, obviously. It's just there was enough problem with the way stuff was being packaged, sending in things. So
San Antonio's never, or you don't know?
No, they don't have a DPS lab. Now they have a private lab. So you could, I think that's going to be the issue. I think because some of those labs, I want to say they were charging, $300 or $400 for a test on meth, and you might have somebody you arrest. This guy's got meth on him. This guy's got meth on him. They're separate, and then they got they got something else. You don't know what it is. So, I think.
You would think they have one in San Antonio with all the.
No, because San Antonio uses the police office.
Yeah, they have theirs.
And the current way we do it is the state does it, and the bill goes directly to the prosecutor for restitution. We don't pay anything. If we go any other way, the city will have to pay for it. We'll have to wait for the restitution.
Which you probably never get.
At minimum, we probably going to go twice a month. That's probably our minimum, the best case scenario. Yeah. But it could be more.
Yeah, $1 a week. So that's just something we're dealing with, and it's not anything it's just everybody's going to be. But what's the issue is these departments that are 2 hours from a lab. You're going to end up having some places they might wait a week and make it an overnight trip to go to the lab. There's a DPS lab in Lubbock. There's one in Midland. There's one in El Paso. You can look on there.
And do you wait for the certain time of the week to accumulate them all to go at one time?
Well, we don't know. Right now, we mail them. We mail stuff. So right now we get it processed. We get it out. We get it out the door. That way, we get the lab results back. We get them to the prosecutor, and they can go on with the case. Because otherwise, if you don't send them, it's basically the longer you take to get the lab results back, the worse chance. It's just like everything else. The older case is, when they get behind, it's easier to just start dropping cases. So it's new. We don't know. I don't anticipate it being. It's just going to be the new normal, like a lot of stuff that I've seen the last 25 years. I never thought that you'd have. When I started, you didn't come in and check emails. We didn't have email. There wasn't any videos to download. About the only place in town had a video was the bank. And so it's just a lot different. So. Anyway, we did break out ammunition and taser cartridges into a separate line item, and we basically took that out of the PD supply line item, which I think last year was somehow got tagged office supplies, but it's actually everything from office supplies to all the different stuff we use. Office supplies to me was more like staples and paper, and we don't it was a lot of stuff that we use. What actually some of the things went up just because they went up, just as they do every year.
Did you talk about the PD vehicles, accessories?
The which one, sir?
PD vehicles and accessories, the 200.
That I'll go to. That's probably the only big thing we've got. But there was something else. Online investigation services. We've been paying for leads online, and this year we're adding a. Matt, remind me of the name.
A company called First 2.
First 2. So much of what we do now is we're researching stuff online and tracking people down, and this is an open source that's very popular with law enforcement. And right now we're getting by with calling people we know that have license to it. But we need to get our own license. I mean, we shouldn't be bought. These other people that work for these other agencies, they're nice, they're glad to help us. But at some point in time, they're like, hey, chief, why buy your own? I mean, I got things to do. So that's basically that. Other than that, everything is pretty much normal with the exception, I'll go back to vehicles before I forget. Building repairs and maintenance, we have at $4,000. We've got some leaks. We got some fixed, but now we have new ones. So we need to get the roof coated. We've made some calls. We're not getting much traction on, I forgot how hard it was to get vendors, for that type of stuff right now. We're not even getting some calls back. Matt, have you called, or was it David and Danny? And we'll start again. I'll have Matt work on it, start again tomorrow. We'll try to get, we need to probably get it coated, the roof coated. It's 10 years old, we just need to get it coated with something that'll...
For the building?
For the police building, yeah. So that's it.
10 years already?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's hard to believe. So, hard to believe. So really nothing in there. And Zach, can you remind if there's matters or something in there that really, it's all pretty much basic stuff. We didn't really have any real adjustments other than that.
Any of those in there still an open item with any grants? Anything in there that we're waiting?
No, the grant stuff.
So I will just say, like, the miscellaneous equipment where you see, like, the $28,000, which is overstated, like, that is the radio grant purchases, but we haven't received the money back yet. So that's where some of those current fiscal activity listings seem a little high.
When just radios that are still tentative out there?
Yeah.
Well, it's...
We've put in the invoices, everything. We're just waiting on the money back.
But so when the city when we got the invoices in, at the time, Lynette was still here. So we just figured, okay, it was decided we'll put them in miscellaneous equipment because we have to put it somewhere to show up. Well, then when we did that, it made it look like you're over $25,000, which we're actually over, I think, about $20. But
and then the only other obviously continual one will be the cops grant, where we'll get reimbursement on the officer.
So the vehicles is a big key. We've got 6 vehicles. One of them, the Charger. We're over on vehicle maintenance. We had to put a motor in the Charger. We also, the Tahoes are much more labor. Maintenance. I will never buy another Tahoe. Everything on them, brakes are terrible. Brakes are terrible, which you can go online and just Google problems. Brakes, the tires are expensive. We use a lot of tires. They're good vehicles, but they're not cheap to operate. They're not good for us. We lowered the budget last year thinking we were going to, have a little bit of newer vehicles, and then we end up with, trouble with the Tahoes. And we did a lot of warranty work too. They put a new motor in one under warranty, and there's another one may end up getting another motor out of warranty. But there's everything else. So that tells you there's a problem, So we're hoping that, anyway, we're going to get rid of right now the Charger, as we just looked online, has $110,000 on it. And we normally try to get rid of stuff before that, but we can't. We only 6 cars. We can't afford to. We have 12 officers. So what's the norm, in a town our size? If you go to Hondo, Pleasanton, Devine, Castroville, they're 1 car per officer.
They're all take-home.
And they're all take-home. So we don't have that. We never have. And we're not going to get that, But we're just short on vehicles compared to like the Ascos County, Medina County. Every officer has their own vehicle. Now every officer doesn't need their own vehicle, but we got to get closer than where we are, because we're having right now 1 vehicle's in the shop, and 1 vehicle's got the radio not working. Then now all of a sudden you just barely got enough to patrol in. So we're having to take a trip, use our personal vehicle maybe to go somewhere as opposed to, and we need to get a vehicle that we need a administrative. We need kind of an unmarked vehicle, a little a little more covert type vehicle that would still be a police vehicle, but a little. When we're doing investigations in San Antonio, if you got a cousin that lives at apartments over there on the northeast side, and you know that he's out here. Huh? Oh, I'd probably be good because I know you don't want to offend nobody else. Yeah. So when you're over there, when we're in San Antonio, and my guys are tracking people down, and they're on the northeast side in their apartment complex and they're marked Lytle vehicle, somebody, hey, they know you. They know they're looking for you because your cousin lives in Lytle and you're out there selling dope or whatever the case may be. So we got to get a little something there to help us out with a little more covertness, but. We had an old car at a time, and then we gave it to animal control because they need it, and then we got it back and it smelled like dogs, and we sold it at auction. Nothing personal. It's true. So what we looked at is if we bought 3 vehicles, if we bought 3 police vehicles, we'd have to get rid of the Charger, please. I mean, that would be that car is not designed. We bought that thinking, it's a car. It was a little cheaper. It'd be a bad decision. Should have got a pickup or something. It's too low. Maintenance on it's been terrible.
Hanson is gone. So
what are you looking at right now?
Well, we're looking at everything from a pickup to maybe Durango, which are like the SRO at the school has. We're looking at, Equinox, a Traverse. We've talked to people using all different kind of vehicles. Some of the best vehicles we've ever had here in the last 25 years that lasted was the 2 Dodge pickups that were not police models, and then when we sold them, we got a lot of the money back. And the Ford Expedition that we had, that was not a police package, those vehicles have held up better than the others. That's just right, Matt. It's just weird but true. So we're not really, what we're doing right now is we're looking to try to get some money to get 3 vehicles, and then that's actually kind of a top number, which we're going to piece. We've tried a lot of different things with these. Last time we went to a turnkey vendor because that's what you do. Well, here's a problem. We know police vehicles. We know where to get the equipment. Normally, what we'll do is we'll buy the vehicles, we'll get an upfitter, and we'll order the equipment. And I won't buy it from one person because they'll give you a good deal on the light bar and they'll charge you twice as much for the installation parts or something. So we'll get on there and we'll search the internet. And we'll buy from 3 or 4 vendors. We'll get the best price on everything. And when we do that, we can actually pinpoint and bring our price down quite a bit. Right? That's what we kind of figured, Matt. That's what we've done.
Yeah, we got to be careful because prices. Now that everybody's online, they can see each other's prices. So.
But you got to get you shop around.
We're going to get the best deal we can.
Yeah, we're going to piece it out to get the best equipment we can on there. What we did last time through the Cap Fleet was a disaster. It took us forever. Matt went and picked up a vehicle. It had 0 gas in it. He got a half a mile down the road and was out of gas. We couldn't get him to return calls. They wanted to charge us to program the thing after we paid, $80,000. They want to charge us to program the light bar. It was just a bad process.
So you have 4 that are kind of the Tahoes, right?
Well, and I say they're kind of new. Matt, what does like number 5 have on how many miles?
It's close to 80-ish.
See what number 5? We have 2 22s and 2 23s.
Yes.
My pickup is
3 years.
My pickup is a 2017 that I drive a lot. So we have a 2017, we have a 2019 Charger, we have 2 22s and 2 23s. But the 22s, one of the
22 has 48,000.
One of the 22s that David drive has 48,000, but the other one has.
It's a total of 6 vehicles, right?
Yes, 6. And then
6.
What is this?
4 of them are part of this program. So, Richie, this program that we have with the 4, are we locked in with them?
No, we don't have any program. They're all bought outright. They belong to us.
So
everything we've got belongs to us.
We don't have any.
No, we don't have all the vehicles we own and have for the over 25 years I've been here. Every police vehicle we have bought outright and we own it. We don't lease. We have looked at lease options, but that's a whole nother ballgame. But that puts us at 4. So how many on the high one has 80,000 or something?
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
Charger off and add the 3. So you're
adding actually 2. So you're going to have.
You're trying to get to 8.
You'll have 8. Yes, you'll have 8. Yeah, you'll have 8, which is still below our neighboring. The department's our size normally. But which is fine though. We don't have to have. But we just need more than what we got. I mean, if I told you I wish I could tell you we need 3, but really we only need 1, or really we only need 2. But the truth is, we need 3 because we need to get rid of 1.
And you think the 250 is going to be?
Yeah. We've done it. We put the pencil to it real tight.
That includes everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything. I mean, we put the pencil to it because, again, if you put an admin vehicle, it's not going to cost quite as much. It's going to be a little less. And then how we do the other vehicles, we're gonna we can do it with that easy. We put the pencil to it numerous times.
I don't speak out of context, but would it be better to have everybody have to take home?
Well,
would it help that out?
Here's the deal. The problem with that is some people probably don't want a take-home car. I mean, it probably creates, I think what you ought to do is when I retire, let the next chief, go try to find a good chief. I'm suggesting a worldwide search, leave out the communist countries. Okay, so what I would suggest, I thought that was funny. They didn't laugh at that at all. But anyway, I would say let that. That's something you're going to have to work towards, because even Zach, when he was in Spring Valley, they all had take-home cars. Did Dickinson, did they have take-home cars? Or? Some. Half did. So here, we don't have anybody with take-home cars. So if you hire another police chief, I don't have a take-home vehicle. Our animal control director and those people have had take-home cars for years. Our public works director's had a take-home car for probably 30 years. I just take mine home because we don't have a lot. If it's like I'm working that weekend, or it's like a holiday period, or we've got weather coming in, then I'll take the vehicle home.
I think eventually we'll probably look at that.
Yeah, it's not something where.
I will tell you this. There's some of the departments right now around us that are looking at going back out of it.
Yeah, I mean there's a million things.
Different reasons that are going out there. So
and we're not anywhere where we could implement that right now. Anyway, I mean I'm just saying that we need some more cars, and some people are going to want. I mean, there's 2 Hondo policemen that live, one just barely in the city limits and one right out of city limits. That they drive those cars from Hondo. Pleasanton's got people that live on the north side of San Antonio that drive vehicles, which to me as a taxpayer, I mean, if a person's on call and they serve special, they've got a special need, then I understand it. But everybody just taking a take-home car to me is wasteful. Now I know when you work for Pleasanton, you had a take-home car. Yeah, he worked for Pleasanton. He had a take-home car. He took right here to Lytle. So again, it's not a great thing. It's not really what we're even looking for right now. We just need some more cars. We just need some work cars right now. We can always pay to Uber people home.
Y'all some Teslas.
Well, there's a lot of people buying stuff like that because there's, they're one of the big school districts in Austin, Del Valley. I think they created a police department. Is it Del Valley? And they went with that. So anyway, go ahead.
You good? Anything? No.
That's kind of where we are.
Cars. Yeah. Cars.
Yeah, really, that's it. I mean, that's really our main concern. Obviously, we have to keep the salaries moving up. We wouldn't have filled these 2 positions if our pay would have been $1 less an hour. I can tell you, because I know where the people came from. I know what they were making. It's still a competitive world. There's a lot. You got new police department. Medina Valley just posted last day or 2. They're trying to hire policemen. I don't know what the pay was, but the school district over there. So as these departments expand, there's a lot of work. But we're fortunate. We've been able to maintain people, and as long as we can keep on the positive, we're going to be okay. We've done it, and it works for us. But that's really it. Cars. The rest of the stuff, I think, unless I'm missing something, is all just kind of the basic junk that we kind of always have. That kind of gets inflated because it just got inflated by nothing we're doing.
Let's see, what time is it right now? It's 8:09. Council, if it's okay, let's go ahead and take a quick 10-minute break. And then we'll go ahead and continue. Break.
There's some feedback, reported issues in several months, so we seem to be doing pretty good now.
So we can, if we need to go to to the community center,
yes,
we can go. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And here recently, with the help of Sub-Zero.
Yes.
Yeah. So now they were to figure out a way without having to knock a hole. We're getting plenum rerouted, so we have AC inside in there. It's not going to look pretty, but it's going to push some air in there, and they'll keep the electronics nice and cool in that room because it does get pretty hot. So that's also going to help being able to do that.
A little bit of an increase in appraisal districts. We don't know what that final number is going to be, but from the appraisal districts, as far as their budgets, we're just now starting to get that in, but I built in a slight increase. It seems to increase every year. Small uptick in office supplies and postage and office technology.
Zach, on the office technology, did you guys include anything within code that we need to?
We have not yet.
So anything that we can look at, I know we talked about billing, maybe something better, easier for folks to be able to do that if it's a little bit more efficient, so maybe look into that.
Okay.
See if we have
not a problem. Let's see. I didn't plug anything in for insurance, so that's why that's off, but we'll make sure to get that filled in. The election expense, I went up $5,000 on that. We know there's a good chance we could have an election. Obviously, we've seen those increases come, so we just kind of putting a number out there. The legal notices, those have been going up. We've been obviously doing a lot more things that we have to post for, so that just naturally kind of where we're seeing increases there. Let's see, another big increase. Probably one of the bigger ones is on the volunteer fire department. So adding $48,000. So the contribution from 102 to 150. We've gotten wind that Bexar County funding for the fire department has gone away. Bexar County moving further into their area and taking over more of their territory. So in meeting with Roger, they haven't made a formal request, but in talking with the mayor and I about just some of their challenges of making sure that they can maintain 2 individuals over there, we felt like it would be necessary to try to increase our contribution to them. And so I just stuck a number with 150, just nice round number, and see where that landed us once we calculate everything. And if we need to back it out, we can. But at least adding a little more to the kitty for them.
And this is volunteer, right? Like,
yes.
Can we get a couple?
No, they're. I can tell you from my experience before I stepped away, it is basically a paid fire department. It's just done with part-time staffing, not full. And I think the budget I got, whatever budget I got from, was at 156 for this city. So we're pretty close.
Yeah, and we hadn't seen that yet, so yeah. So
why don't you do this, Zach? Why don't you go ahead and bump it up to 160?
160?
Yeah, just put it, give the question. I do have a question. So on the ambulance building,
yes.
This one down?
Yes.
We actually spend a lot less this year than we have.
Yeah.
So we still have some availability with that to be able to consider for the next option for that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Out of this year's budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know.
So if the funding is being reduced or eliminated from Bexar County, does the responsibility go as well?
In theory, yes, to a certain extent. I mean, obviously, mutual aid is still a thing, right? So they've had to respond to, I think, some of the crashes we've had right on the line, right, and in Bexar County. So there's still that kind of aspect. Yeah, but we are adding, if you remember now, we're going to, here soon, we're going to be adding the data center to their responsibility, in that area. So as much as we're taking away, we are adding other areas. So.
And with them losing Bexar County, it's actually going to probably be, I know it's going to cost a little more money, probably a better benefit, because their availability, remember, most of their calls were into Bexar County with fire and EMS runs, and those don't exist anymore.
Yeah, so they're
going to be here more.
The routine calls, right?
Yeah.
Routine.
Yeah, they don't have very many mutual aids in Bexar County.
Yeah.
They're kind of handling their own stuff.
So it's
actually a benefit.
It's good. And it's also good for saves overall. Emergency management. I was surprised. So we're doing really good on that account, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
But we're going to spend some money.
We have some pending invoices coming, but I will say traditionally we have not gotten up to that 60 every year. So, I mean, if there's some cost savings, we could pull that down if we wanted to, but we've traditionally kept it at 60 for that. I'm sure during the winter storm and stuff like that, y'all saw higher costs in that respect, but some of that was reimbursable.
So, and looking, with all the issues that we have with the sirens recently going on, they have a new program there within the same company, and I have to look more into it, but basically you can set your sirens off from a computer or the phone or the radios, but the computer is constantly talking and monitoring the sirens. So the second one goes offline, it tells you, and vice versa. So that may be something, I don't know cost, but maybe something we can venture into, and bringing us closer into the new age of software.
In council, especially for the new, just so you know, so Matt is definitely, and even though the lead at EMC falls in the mayor's position, but Matt is pretty much a lead with that, so he's fully aware of all the stuff that is happening with the emergency management side of the house and stuff. And we're always looking at things that we want to do and be able to bring better, in the sense of preparation for our city. So there's a few things. I know, Matt, I know that we also are waiting for the stuff to come down from the county with the generators and the quick connects. So
have we ever heard anything?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know yet.
So, but if we get resolution and they don't cover some of these things, we definitely need to spend this year. We got to get those quick connects in those other facilities.
Yes, and generators, they're popping back up on the government surplus websites, and good generators that are coming back from the military that we could go pick up for a fraction of the cost. And I'm talking about the big ones we use for the music fest. I think I just saw one pop up the other day for like $12,000.
Yeah. So we might have some money.
So
let's go.
So we might have some money that we might be able to use for that. And we use it for multiple purposes. But definitely the quick connect, man.
Okay,
we'll do that and get those.
One question.
Yep.
The office technology.
Yes.
I don't know if this is related to it, but have we addressed and corrected any issues with communication between the community center and the main building? We're talking about the VPN.
Yeah, it seemed, other than recently when Spectrum just went out just randomly because of the weather that we've had. Yeah, it seems to be working just fine now. They haven't had any reported issues in several months, so we seem to be doing pretty good now.
So we can, if we need to go to the community center,
yes,
we can go.
Yes, yeah.
And here recently, with the help of Sub-Zero.
Yes.
Yeah. So now they were able to figure out a way without having to knock a hole. We're getting plenum rerouted, so we have AC inside in there. It's not going to look pretty, but it's going to push some air in there. And
that's all it needs.
They'll keep the electronics nice and cool in that room because it does get pretty hot. So that's also going to help being able to do that.
So I made a note for myself, but we had obviously the grant consulting there was obviously for EMC. Not in this version that y'all saw or you're seeing, but since today, Yvonne and I have moved some of those the grant consulting, the consulting engineer line item that had nothing budgeted last year or this year, consolidating some of those just to professional fees, which shows up earlier in the budget. So, not sure if we're going to need or where we stand with the grant, aspect of it. Obviously, we're going to still continue to try to find grants, and we have the GLO one we're after for the comp plan and stuff like that. So there's still some costs that are still associated, even if we're not with EMC. But we are consolidating all those kind of professional fees within admin under one line item there. So that might slightly change as you see it today.
Well, that's good. I mean, there's going to be opportunities, stuff that
for sure.
pop up that we might be able to.
And if it's small enough stuff, there's ways that if staff is taking care of it, we can get reimbursement back for the admin portion instead of having like GrantWorks or Kimley Horn handling some of those. So there's ways to continue there. There's two kind of stormwater or drainage related ones on here. Basically, we would remove that from the admin. That's why there's nothing budgeted, and we would actually move that to stormwater utility. So
Be its own separate.
correct. So those will be pulled out there. We've not on this version, but we have consolidated some of the street related items as well. But that'll stay under the admin portion at this point. But really, that's really the only big changes in the admin portion.
So what's the insurance line item?
I just hadn't put it in yet.
Okay.
That was my bad.
So take a look, and not for tonight, but just take a look at the street repairs.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be time again based on how many years we usually go in between. And we try to save, like, the 2 years we don't use that money, we save it up and we try to put it all together, after multiple years, and then we go out and do some streets. Matt, the last one that we did, that was maybe about 2.5 years ago. 2 years.
Railroad Street?
I'd have to go look at it. It was railroad, but that's because normally it was $100,000 every year. But then we had 1 year we didn't do it, so we pocketed 200. I think 225 or 250 in one. But normally it's always been $100,000 every year that got budgeted. We try to do, but that doesn't get you very far.
Because I think
It doesn't.
It's been 2 years, yeah, so 2.5.
And street lights needs to be that higher than the repairs?
Well, street lighting is what we're having to pay for all the street lights with CPS and AEP and Reliant and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, but let's look at that one, and
Okay.
if we can, we can, because I know we don't do it every year, but we try to do it to where we go around and then we get inputs from the council, which streets are the ones.
Made a note of it. I do have, on that aspect, I do have Kimley Horn looking at actually finding somebody that can actually drive all the streets and give us some data on what the streets look like.
We've already
Well, yeah. So,
Stay at 5.
do what?
Stay at 5.
We don't get charged. Yeah, I mean, we do have the old list, but we also take into consideration the usage. There are some roads that have, but they're low usage. So I know the council in the past has actually prioritized other streets that have a lot more throughput based on the volume and those things. But all in all, let's just make sure we kind of keep that in there.
Yeah, I made a note for that one.
Look at that for us to look as we start taking care of that. Anything else on that one, Council? Okay.
All right, community center. Really, no change here. I didn't add the workers' comp, so just like the last one, I need to go in and add that one. And then deposit refunds, we took $1,000 out of that, but there's some changes that are come that Yvonne and I did today, even with some of that. So, but really no change per se on the community center. Yeah, so that's actually going to come out. That was one of those, if you look, it's like in the revenue as well, and then you have it at the, but that was the CD, so I don't know why it was being listed that way. It's really, I mean, it's already been moved to like text pool, and we're just getting interest on it and stuff like that. So once we have actual projects, and we can put those in there, and
Because one of the things we were talking about the remodeling.
Yes. Yeah, so we need the foundation, we need the engineer to give us something on that, and then we have had somebody go in and just make some cosmetic type things here recently. They painted the bathrooms, painted the back wall of the stage that had some real bad issues, yeah, so just as we're starting to make just general kind of cosmetic stuff, so we can.
You go into the restrooms and they did a real good job. They used to have wallpaper and peeling, and they just looked all dark. Now it's all white paint. It looks a lot brighter. It's nicer. It's cleaner. And then the backsplash wall too. It's a lot more presentable.
Yes.
You know, in the sense if you're taking photos or anything like that. So it's good. There's still a little bit more work to do. But
Do you have the doors on the community center?
That was intended to be, part of all that.
Okay, I just know because they're bad. We're having to keep one side locked at all times.
Yeah. Part of it is the foundation issue. But yeah.
Take care of some of the good cosmetic stuff.
So that's community center. Council's portion, nothing changed on that. Still the same council meeting supplies and the council allowance there, unless y'all have any questions about that. Municipal court. So a lot of this is changing. As you see on the actuals from 22, 23, 23, 24, we've never really had this straight. Part of it was under PD for a time, you know, some of those line items. So it's been moving constantly. So a lot of this probably from what you see today will change, so I don't want to go too much into detail, but obviously we're increasing where, you know, just the general normal, you know, fines across the board and just, you know, some of the usual increases that we see, but nothing other than that is changing. So
For reducing, we paid to kind of send the letters out and go after them. Do we see any? I know we're getting closed out, but do we see anything from them? Or is it pretty much a wash through?
It's supposed to be a wash. It's supposed to be a wash.
Well, no, I think we're getting something in now, aren't we? Because we were sending them prior, you know, they weren't getting fresh data. So our girls, I think, are doing better now at sending fresher data. So they're getting fresh, like that's something warrants, right? The fresher the information, the quicker that person's going to pay.
But when we pay, how much of that goes to Purdue?
All of it. This is the way the contract is built out with them.
Then why are we using it then?
I thought it was a percentage. So if they collect our fine, they collect fine.
I'm saying $100, right? And they're going to get $100 off it. Then why do we use them for fees or collections if we're not seeing anything off of it?
Yeah. I can pull the. I'll pull the information we have on it, but normally that's normally a wash there. So.
I think.
I mean, I would think. I'm just saying at least 5%.
But that's why if you look at the revenue portion, it's the Purdue revenue at 60,000, but then literally it matches up completely to. So it's, you have in and you have out.
There's a percentage. Yeah, take a look at it, peel the onion, because I think there's.
That's the case. We've been paying officers send letters all day long. Budget money there.
I mean,
we'll pull
it washes itself out with 60, but I'm just saying, like, what's the use of them making it to collect some of our fines and tickets if we can't get nothing off of it?
Yes.
That's an additional cost that's added on. So if the ticket's $100 and they add on 30%.
Yeah,
we're getting our ticket. We're getting our ticket portion. Yes. Yeah.
Purdue is only getting that additional charge.
Correct.
Yes.
It's like an interest.
They add 10 or they take percent on top.
Yeah. But what they're charging, they're getting back. Yeah. That's the wash.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. And I think we all misunderstood what you were saying.
Yes.
Yeah. We still get our fine.
Correct. Yeah. They don't collect the whole fine.
We send back to the state. We keep the rest.
Do we have a line item for the associate judge?
Yes. That's the magistrate fees. So I actually decreased that just slightly. So
is that inside the magistrate fee, or
yes.
do we track it differently because we're paying somebody?
Yeah, that's how we've always placed it, but we can definitely track it separately if that's something council wants.
I think for associate, if we're paying somebody, we got to keep it separate. It's not a fee, you know.
I mean, most of the time, the associate judge, that's all they are doing is the magistration. That's why they called it that.
Some of the past ones, didn't they actually, is it as needed?
Every once in a while they come in and cover municipal court.
Yeah, but very few.
Well, if they're as needed, I get it, but I know that there's some judges actually charge per month, whether they magistrate or not.
Sure. So but we would build it into the contract that it would only be as needed.
As needed, okay.
Yeah. So that's why we've kept it as that I think before we had it as it was a flat fee across the board.
That's what I was thinking.
And when at council's direction, changed that so we billed it appropriately in the contract. But that's where they've always stuck it because that's all traditionally the associate judge has been doing.
That's what they were hired for, was to magistrate people on the weekends.
Yep.
So that's why they got started calling it that. So, but really, it's not. Really, it's an associate judge.
Yeah.
Just what you said.
We can just rename it appropriately.
The bailiff fee, that's you said somebody out there doesn't come out of any overtime from the PD or nothing, right?
No, that's out of security. It should be out of court security funds, and that's money that we pay officers to come in and work bailiff in court.
But it doesn't go back to the time separate working.
Separate.
No, but this is, you see, those are the things, just be able to put them in there. All right. Anything else on that?
Sorry, just making my notes. Okay, parks. The only change here is in the miscellaneous park equipment. It appears we have not spent anything in that, but I do believe if you go down to repairs and maintenance, I think some of that was miscoded, so it needs to be in miscellaneous park equipment. So we'll double check on that. But the 600 additional there is we need a new riding lawnmower for parks, and the one they have is barely getting them by, and so we got a quote for that for Public Works, and so just based on that price, getting for both of them, so getting two total, but one out of this budget portion.
$600.
Yeah.
Why don't we spend $2,000 on a Zoom?
We can do whatever you would like.
They're more commercial grade. They can't do both of the things, but
I know what you mean. Yeah.
They're
versatile. Versatile.
Just have somebody cutting the parks outside of him.
Yes. Yeah. So I know the point.
Money on getting him a nice zero turn.
And that was, so the point was when I brought in the new gentleman, Julian, for the parks, that was a conversation that him and I had, and I said, I need to know what kind of equipment is necessary to make that change a reality, because that was council directed that they wanted for him to take over more of that portion. That was what was built in the job description. And he basically said, with that mower, there's no way I can do that. So that's why we were looking at adding that to the budget so we could actually make that transition going forward.
Greatly reduces the amount of time.
Yeah.
I would say we're going to spend money on that versus hiring somebody to come and cut, and we're still going to save in the long run.
Yeah.
In the long run of
we can look into that.
Yes, we can get a different quote to determine the price and adjust accordingly.
And are we under contract with some people?
We are, but it changes over October, so I mean, this would be the time to do it.
We have to give them 9 days?
No. It was a very basic contract. Yes.
We also talked about other options.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else on fire? The only thing on this one, Zach, I would say there's still some money available in there. We definitely go pay attention to the pavilion.
Yeah.
And the restrooms and all that, so if we need to, just like we've done in some of the other places.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, I mean, like I said, the repairs and maintenance has been, we budgeted 20 this year, we've spent 32, but I think some of that is supposed to be under the park equipment, and just got miscoded, so we're real tight with where we're at, but if there is any, obviously we'll try to capitalize on that. So.
What about the money that we make from the events there, the big events? Does that come out of there? Does that money come to the city? Is that money that we can touch?
Well, we don't make any money from events.
We're not supposed to make any money.
Well, I thought we were having vendors and all this other stuff.
So the vendors, for like Music Fest, the vendors have traditionally been handled by the chamber. So that was not money that we ever saw. We paid for the production side of the Music Fest. So it was about, 30,000, give or take, 35,000 is what we've spent, and that's out of our hot tax expense. We, for 4th of July, we spend 20,000 on fireworks, get 5 back from waste management, but we don't get anything off of that. And then, hayride, we get a little bit of money, but we split that and goes back to the pantries. But it's very minimal.
To me, on one event like that, we should make something that goes back to the city. I mean, if you're doing it for Santa and you're making money from Santa, then might as well make some off of these events. And that's just my thought. So
it is very difficult for, especially in like a city park, for us to make money legally on the use of a open public park. So, I mean, I can definitely speak with legal, but there are, yeah.
And just so you know, what the chamber uses the money that they get from the vendors is the money they use for the scholarships. It goes back to the scholarships they give out to kids. So,
I'll check with other cities and see what they do, because I think we should be able to profit off of that. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Thank you.
So that's it on the budget per se, unless there's any questions on that. The only other ones that I wanted to go over included in the packet was we did get the breakdown for health and benefits. And so it did come back at 6.7% of an increase. So I was pretty close with my 6%. That would be keeping the same rates as we currently have, and that's what is built in the numbers you see in the budget. Something I don't think y'all have seen in the past, or at least maybe for some time, is they have provided additional options that could be explored by council if y'all so choose. And so I needed, on this particular item, I just need some direction on if we're good with just staying with the same plan we have, running with that, or any of the options. It does, there are 2 options that make that increase less of an increase, and then there's 2 options that actually decrease from our current rate. But the problem with that is there is I would say what would be very marginal benefit, if not any, to the employees themselves. Potential out-of-pocket costs increasing, things like that. But I wanted to make sure that y'all saw all the options that they're offering before y'all, so y'all can make that decision.
So Zach.
Yes.
Council, if it's okay, can we go ahead and get our department heads to give us inputs on which option they would prefer?
Sure.
And don't give them that option. We probably like we're at 3% now, right? On
the salaries.
Yeah. And where we're at on insurance. Well, okay, now if we're at 5, you're going to go to this option on the insurance because of that's deductible or something like that.
I can maybe
and then give them some.
I know Chief Priest mentioned that health was one of the biggest selling points.
Yeah, I'll
you should at least stay at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least.
I'll just, so can I speak for a moment? Somebody wants to hear me? So here's the deal. And I talked to Zach. You've only got 3 employees that dependent coverage, okay? All right?
Zach, they're covering their dependents.
Yeah, Zach with a contract, Roger and I out of pocket. Okay, so here's the deal. If we lower this, we get us a little less money. So I save $100 a month. But everybody else in the city is going to get the bad end of the stick, and me too, because your stuff goes up. Yeah. So going backwards is definitely not the answer. We need to stick where we are because it's not going to benefit anyone. I mean, the truth is, if it was going to benefit me at $700-800 a month, it'd be something I'd say, well, hey, think about this. But the issue is, what does it cost to put dependents on there? And it's if you have a wife or you have a wife and 5 kids. This is what I pay.
Under what they're currently, or the new rate?
The new rate.
The new rate is $2,236.82.
That's what I pay a month to have my family on there. Now, if you want to go to the Medina County website, if you go to work in Medina County, I can put my whole family, medical, dental, vision, everything, $600.
Actually, it's a little less than that. I apologize. Because that's including the employee portion that we pay.
So it's because we pay the employees.
Yes.
Yeah. So we pay the employees. Mine's actually around $1,400 a month. What I pay. It's what I would be paying. But not something we're going to solve tonight. But if I go to the city of Hondo, if I go to the city of Pleasanton, they're going to pay 50% dependent coverage. Okay, so that's something that y'all as a council, my career is towards the end here, relatively speaking. As this city grows, you're not going to be able to compete. If my officers start having families, if Matt's wife got a contracting job and he had to put the kids on insurance, he'll retire. He'll retire 2 weeks from now, and he'll get a job where he has. So and it's not just him; it's numerous employees we have. That's something you're going to have to look at in the future. But for now, please don't lower, because health insurance is. Well, that's the reason I work here. I love the job, but I have my family on insurance. That's what keeps me. That's why That's why I'm here. Because I could go back to modeling.
Yeah, so just the medical alone for the dependent, on the dependent, the medical alone under the new rate is $1,437. So $1,437 to carry your dependent, and that's just on the medical. Obviously it's minimal cost on the dental and vision, but that does add.
Well, on the new rate, when you have the current plan and the new rate, is that comparable to option 1?
It's similar to option 1. The only change under option 1, if I'm not mistaken, is there is a higher out-of-pocket maximum. It goes up by $1,000 under option 1. Everything else under that stays the same, but you're really only saving, couple, maybe like $30, honestly, under that option.
Yeah, I think it's very. That should always be left alone.
Again, I have no dog in the fight. I just wanted to be able to present y'all the options that were presented to us, so that way we.
A little bit, right?
Yeah, it's still going to be an increase. It's just less of an increase. So.
So overall, my recommendation is that all departments look at training and education. We got some new personnel coming here. We still have some on the board. I think training's going to be a big part of how successful we are in the future. We need to put a lot of emphasis on training and education. If anybody wants to get certifications, we've talked about this in council before, and you benefit from these certifications.
Yeah.
So if each department can take a look at that.
Yeah. And I will say, not as much in the admin side of like the general fund, but I know in water and sewer, a lot of that's already built into the salaries as a potential, because obviously the hope is that we encourage them and they go and they get it taken care of, and then we can pay them more. So some of that's already going to be built in, obviously, at the end of the day. So. They do, yes. Yeah, they do.
Everybody but the chief. For some reason that the council didn't do for the chief years ago. I think they should for. There you go. Sorry, you're back. Nothing.
Take it away from you, man.
Yeah.
The last little thing that I have, so I know some of y'all gave me an actual ranking. Some of y'all I didn't get, but that's okay, on the priorities. So I have the final list. So I will pass those out. I will also send them electronically for everybody as well. But this is with the final list of adding or subtracting ones from the ranking list. And I did not get everybody's. So I'm basing it off of what we have at this point. So
you want us to rank them now?
Well,
on the new
I just sent in 3, like my top.
Did you send them when? because I haven't seen yours.
You want the top 10?
So, Zach, let's pass them out. Counselor, if it's okay, let's pass them out, and let's go ahead and scratch off the ones that we want to scratch,
Okay.
and then you send a new one out, and
Okay.
then have everybody rank them.
Well, and I already scratched like 3 or 4 that we had already paid for or were in the works, like the baseball field lighting, that kind of stuff. So
So you already received it, you don't need to receive it again.
yes. Yes.
You do?
No, I do not need it again. Yes.
You're gonna send
Not
it
use
on-
that. Who do they?
Is that not you? Where did I send it to?
Okay, but some
I
of
sent it
these,
to somebody.
okay, these were the ones.
That's what you found yesterday.
Okay, for this one already,
I incorporated what I have gotten from people.
okay.
Okay. And I took off 3 or 4 that were already determined as. So if I got it from you and you added anything, those are on there.
Now you just need rank order.
Well, if what you're saying is let council continue to add for the ones that I haven't gotten from before
No,
we rank.
this is the final one, unless we have anything, but I do have a question.
Sure.
Add a full-time position at City Hall. What
So
is-
that one was put on there last year, but no one asked. I don't know what it was for. Don't know what it was intended to be, but it was put on last year. So
Yeah, because this one, that one, that was on.
The one I remember that might have tied in was for us to add somebody under the finance.
Yeah, I think that was Ronnie.
could have been, but I think
So-
it was. We had already when I went back, we had already added Ronnie, and then the council priorities came out. So yeah, so we can. I mean, we can remove that one. I'm
Yeah,
fine.
I would take that one off.
Okay.
I'll take that one off.
Do you feel it's a priority?
Yeah, I mean,
Part-time employee and parks.
yes, that was added by somebody this time.
Okay, so add an extra one to the full-time.
Correct. Well, a part-time. Yes. Yes. The ones I removed were baseball field lighting. There was some the comp plan. I think I might have removed or changed that a little bit, and then there was a couple other ones that we'd already secured. Oh, plugging of well 3, that kind of stuff.
So
It should have an effect on
1, 2, 3,
your
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So there's 17. There's 17.
Without the full time.
Yes.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Because the last one was 19, right?
It was 18, I think.
It's 19.
It may have been 19. It may have been 19. But a couple had been added this time, so yeah, that might. I think I took off 4, and at least 2 got added for sure. So that makes sense.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time. Just go ahead and scratch the add full-time position at City Hall. Just scratch that. Okay.
I'll get you it electronically if you want.
If you
Nope.
can,
Okay.
if you want to take it home, you just rank order.
Fine.
Your number 1 is number 1. Your niece is number 17. Okay. So rank order them. You can either drop it off, you can scan it, send it in, or if you got it electronically, you can just do it electronically, whichever way. But
Drop it into Excel, make it into a spreadsheet, then you can sort.
Now you're making it too complicated.
You left off the street.
I'm sorry.
You left off the street paving.
No, it's there.
No,
It's there.
sir.
It's right there. Miscellaneous street paving.
It's there, and there's also one more specific. I think street and drainage.
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah,
Is this word? Okay.
it's slightly changed from what you sent, so that's why I'm. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right.
So rank order 1 through 17, and either drop it off by tomorrow, close the business, or email it, or whichever.
Drop it off at the window.
Okay, whichever way you want to do it.
That's
If you
fine.
want to stay behind after the meeting and do it, and then give it back, go do that. But just let's go ahead and turn it in so we take care of that. Okay. Just need the council's inputs. Cool beans. All right, Zach.
That's all I got.
Anything else, council? I think this was very productive. We got a little bit of everything from every department of what we needed to do. We also had the input based on our water and wastewater study It sounds like we'll need to make some adjustments based on some charges that we need to kind of incorporate, but overall we're doing well. If we really think about it, we're doing very well compared to other communities around here, but we need a plan for the future, and this is the time for us to go ahead and take that first step to be able to take care of that. So I really want to say thank you to Zach, Yvonne. I know you guys have been working really hard on this and putting the numbers and everything. We appreciate it. We look forward to our continued workshops and be able to take care of. Our next one is just going to be the regular meeting, right?
Yes, and then I got to figure out with the calendar.
And then we'll figure out for the next meeting. We're still doing good on the calendar based on the rate or the times that we get the rate adjustments and all that stuff we need to do. But if nobody has anything, I don't need a motion since it's a workshop. It is 9:03, and we'll go ahead and call for adjournment. Okay. 9:03.